right. Welcome to another episode of Connect and Politic. We're here with a special guest. Please introduce yourself by telling us your name, where you're currently located, and your favorite snack.
Ooh. My name is Savena Allen. I live in Rockville, Maryland, and my favorite snack, this is horrible, hot cheese curls. Not to be confused with Cheetos.
Right. Hot cheese curls.
Mm-hmm.
That's unique. When was the last time you had that?
So they're increasingly more difficult to find. Probably about, December? Probably about 4 months ago.
Okay.
You can find them at some Wawas and some CVS stores, and then some off-brand supermarkets.
Got it. Do you remember your favorite food as a child?
Ever since I was little, my favorite food has been crabs.
What about is it the process or is it the actual crab meat?
So it's both. When I was little, my great-grandfather, brick by brick, built a summer house for his grandkids, my dad and his siblings. And up until the time I was 8, when he passed away and the house was eventually sold because his remaining children couldn't agree on whether or not they wanted to keep it or sell it. And so they voted to sell it. But it was on a tributary to the Chesapeake Bay in Virginia, near Virginia Beach. And I would go crabbing as a kid. And even though I was 8 when they actually sold the place, I still have some of my fondest memories there of, putting the rope around the chicken and baiting them and watching the crab come up slowly as I was pulling in. There was really an art to it. So I think it's a little bit nostalgic, but also I love the way that crabs taste. I love Maryland blue crabs, but I'll eat Alaskan king crab, Dungeness, anything, but a special place for Maryland blue crabs.
Nice. And would you say crabs are still your favorite meal as an adult?
Yes. Yep.
What do you like? Is there anything you have with the crab, or is it just?
So I love, first of all, to get like a half bushel, or if we're having people over, we'll get a bushel and just put newspaper down, and we'll usually have corn on the cob, French fries, coleslaw, and fried chicken.
Nice. Well, so when was the last time you had this spread?
So we had crabs probably about a month and a half ago. I'm losing track of the dates in 2020. So my best guess is about a month and a half ago. There is a little hole in the wall in Silver Spring up in Burtonsville. And actually kind of near where Reese's mom lived. I don't know if she still lives there, but in that general area. And a friend of ours up there told us about it. They were like, you would pass right by it if you weren't looking for it. And they will steam them for you. And I don't cook my own whole crabs. I will make other dishes with crab meat, but I don't steam my own whole crabs. So we just kind of on a whim, I had a taste for crabs and I was like, this is what I want to do. So we went and we picked up some crabs.
Nice. What's your fondest memory from childhood?
Ooh, I don't know that I have one. I mean, certainly going down to Deep Creek, which was where my grandfather built the house, is certainly one of them. But then also, I'm originally from Philly, and when I was 8, we moved to a different street, and I was coming from another street that had a ton of kids. So I was a little bit skeptical about, you know, how many friends I was going to be able to make, but I kind of hit the jackpot with kids on that street again. And we played like all the time, you know, whether it was basketball in the street, we would make up games. We played like word games and hand games and wall ball. And I was a tomboy. So I just loved being outside all day long. So that's probably what I think about when I think about my childhood, just playing.
Yeah. And do you miss that? Do you miss being a child?
I think that in a lot of ways, I'm still very much a child. Like, you know, this is going to sound so terrible, but so every morning my husband and I walk the dogs, and when we come back, we have this game where we do this toss with the poop bags to see who can get it into the correct area. And so I feel like we're always gamifying just very mundane tasks. So I still very much think that I'm a child. We my kids are really into sports, so we still play, you know, stuff with them. They can absolutely destroy us now, but we'll still give a good fight, you know.
Nice. Yeah. No, I think playing those silly games and remaining a child is good for the heart. So what were you like in high school?
According to me, or so that's a really good question. So I've never been shy. So I think I was pretty outgoing back then. When I was younger, I was like really, really competitive, like across the board, like sports, grades, all those things. And then I got to middle school, and like, I just wasn't as competitive. Like, I didn't think about my grades the way that I did when I was like younger. And then I think by the end of like sophomore year, I was like, oh, I want to get back into being competitive. So I kind of switched gears, but I was always a really studious person. So I think some people would probably say that I was a little bit corny, but I knew I was corny. So I wasn't like, I didn't think that I was cool. I just have always sort of embraced that. I was still a tomboy. Like I've never really been into like hair and makeup. It's actually really bad now, but so even in high school, I wasn't really into hair and makeup, but I'd like to get dressed up like occasionally. So still a little bit of a tomboy. I think some people may have said that I was stuck up. I think that might have been because maybe I was like reserved in an initial setting. So I don't think that I was, but you know, maybe some people might have thought that. And I think pretty friendly. So yeah, that.
Yeah, that's an interesting list. You said a lot of things that kind of contrast, right? You said you were corny, or was it that you thought you were corny, or others thought you were corny? But then you said that others thought you were stuck up.
Yeah. So I have never been able to dance. I do not have a poker face. So like, corny because like, I have a really hard time breaking rules. So like, I remember in high school, I was young for my grade, and the guy that I was dating at the time, he would always go to the gym, and he was like, I can take you, but you have to be 18. I was like, but I'm not 18. They're like, you just have to say you're 18. And I was like, I can't do that. So we would get there, and like I would have my story together, and we would be sitting there and they'd be filling out the paperwork for a guest and they'd be like, how old are you? And I'd be like, 17. And they're like, oh my gosh, I just said you just have to. And I was so corny like that. I like the first time that, so some people would have said I was corny, but maybe a prude also. Like the first time that I drank, I think I was 20. And some friends who had graduated from Howard, I was visiting them. And there wasn't really much to do. And so we're like, oh, let's get something to drink. And we, they got like all this alcohol and we drank. And that was the one time in my life that I probably should have been drunk. But I realized that I have a very high tolerance for alcohol genetically. So I was like, it's probably a good idea for me not to drink. And then I just never developed like a taste for it. So probably just, a prude would be a better word. So corny and a prude, but like I knew I was, but I was okay with it. So, I think my friends were okay with it because I didn't try to act like I wasn't that,
Yeah. So let's double tap on this a little. You said you have a high tolerance for alcohol.
Yes.
You didn't know that the first time you drank though, did you?
No.
Oh.
So like I want to say like 7 or 8 shots. So like I should have been completely inebriated, and I certainly would not have driven that night, but I was lucid and like I could have a conversation. And so we have some people who can drink in my family. I mean, that was like one of the activities, like when we would have like big parties and barbecues and people over, like everybody just drank. So I know that in my family, we have a lot of people who drink, and including both of my grandmothers. I just remember them like when I was growing up, that they could certainly hold their own. And so I can have an addictive personality. Like usually it's like for like a certain cereal. So I was like, I probably shouldn't go down the alcohol route because I have probably a really high tolerance. And if I already have the kind of personality where if I really like something, I'll just get addicted to it. And I love to eat. So I can consume those calories in hot Cheetos and not alcohol. Yeah, which also saves us money. And I married somebody who's really, really cheap. And so he doesn't drink either. So we feel really good about that because we can have dessert and like appetizers, and our bill is nowhere near like what our friends' bills are. So.
Oh man. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. So how do you think that childhood helped groom you into the person you are today?
So hands down, I think that growing up being active and playing sports, it had such an impact on like who I am today, because I never felt this need for like somebody else to validate me. I like the idea of having to date a guy and, go to his games or like support him. I was like, well, are you coming to my game? So it made me always feel empowered. And so I think that was a big part. I think also that my parents really didn't put a lot of pressure on me. So they let me kind of make my own choices and decisions without saying like, you have to do, and then sort of fill in the blank. So I think that got me comfortable with being able to make decisions for myself. I think being from, I was 10 when we left Philly and moved to North Jersey. So that was like a big culture shock, because I went from, we lived in Philadelphia proper, but it wasn't like a super urban area. It was like an urban suburban area where you could take the bus places, but it was mostly row houses and single family houses, but it was still sort of accessible. But I remember taking public transportation, and I learned how to take the bus. Like when I would go and visit my relatives in Philly from Jersey, they'd be like, well, you know, you have to take the bus to get around. So I figured that out. And so I think that helped to develop like life lessons that I think in a lot of ways, like my kids don't have, because they don't have those same real world experiences. So yeah, I think I got enough of the real world, but was still, you know, pretty sheltered to be able to have like a really positive childhood.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned lessons. Did you grew up with both your mom and your dad?
I did. Yeah, my parents got married really, really young. My mom was barely 18, and my dad was 21. And, you know, by many accounts, their marriage never should have lasted. You know, just very poor, kids, young, and really the thing that sort of changed it for them was my dad's sister was at Cheney University outside of Philly, and she insisted that he enroll, and he was really sort of reluctant, and she wouldn't take no for an answer, and that sort of changed the trajectory of his life, and I think that ultimately changed the trajectory of our lives. And so my mom worked and put him through school, and you know, he eventually graduated, and they're still married to this day. 46 years, I want to say.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what would you say are some of the most important lessons you learned from both of them, your mom and your dad?
So my dad, I think, because I played sports, I feel like my dad didn't have any sons. So I think that was, I was the closest thing he was going to get to a son. And so I think that he really helped to instill like a sense of confidence in me. And my dad is, even to this day, like he does not take anything too seriously. So he's always like laughing and joking, you know, every April Fool's Day that he's going to try to get you. And it's so obvious when he calls, but he wants to get that last prank in, and it never works. So I think that I probably get a lot of, you know, just being childlike in a lot of respects, which some people are going to be like, you're not childlike at all, because I'm a planner. So if you see that side of me, you don't think of me as like somebody who's silly, but there's definitely the game playing side of me. So I think I got that from him, just feeling confident in myself, but also not taking life too seriously. And then from my mom, I actually just wrote this in her birthday card this year. She is really like the epitome of loving her kids unconditionally. I think no matter whatever happened, there was no threshold that you could cross that would distance you from her. So I'm terrible at that sometimes. But I think that is the lesson, one of the lessons that I got from my mom.
Yeah. So the fact that you're aware of this when you're not, you know, like when you're not doing what your mom would do in a moment, does that, you say you're terrible at it sometimes. How does that, like what happens when that happens for you?
So I think a lot of it comes down to like how I parent. And so I think that my parents were largely like, they'll figure it out, like you have to make your own decisions, and like basically allowing me to sort of grow into who I was, which is funny because my mom was also very overprotective in a lot of ways, and very, if you ask my husband, sometimes overbearing, just because she didn't want to let her kids go. But like, for me, when I'm thinking about my own kids and, how much influence I want to have on them, I think sometimes I do reflect on how my parents did it, and I try to step back sometimes to let them make more decisions. My husband would say I do a terrible job at that, but I'm really working on giving people in my house now space to be able to, kind of become their own people.
Right. All right. So what are 3 things you love to do every day?
Ooh. Okay. 3 things every day.
Yeah. I mean, not that you actually get it done, or it's done, but you would, if your ideal day, if you could, envision your ideal day, what would be 3 things that, gets done?
Okay. So for a long time, every, like New Year, I would always have like the same goals for the year. They'd be really generic. And it was pretty much like, okay, I want to work on my mind, body, and soul, right? So a couple years, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I read something about being more specific in like, your aspirations. So I started setting more specific goals. So I try to make it a point every day to read a passage or a couple of passages, just depending on where it is, in the Bible, and a devotional. So I started buying usually devotionals for women. So I feel like that has been really a grounding force for me, especially in times like this, where there's a lot more uncertainty, and things that I just sort of took for granted are now being challenged. So I think that's one thing that has helped me to be more at peace. Reading and reflecting and being more conscious of that every day. So that is one thing that I enjoy and I look forward to, and that challenges me too, because I don't always understand 100% of what I'm reading. So that has been something that I got into the habit of doing, and very much look forward to the message. And it's funny because I think that there are only certain times in your life where like God talks directly to you. And so, you've been praying about something, and then you finally get like a message. And so sometimes I feel like that message is crystal clear. And then sometimes I feel like I am all over the map. Like, I thought you told me you wanted me to do this, and now I'm reading this, so I don't understand where we're going with this. So that is one thing. And connected with that is a group of friends that in different ways I've been able to share those things with, or passages that like I don't understand, or we sort of laugh and joke about the mixed messages that we might be receiving. So I think that is one thing. And I would lump kind of the friends, and particularly like other women who share a faith with me. That is one thing that I really love every day. And that usually is one of the things that I do, like, as something in the morning. So that is usually one of the first things that I do. The other thing is So we got dogs 8 years ago, and they are worse than kids. I don't know if you have dogs, but they never mature. They never become independent. They don't feed themselves. They don't do anything for themselves. So when we first got them, I was like, this is a mistake. Like, and we got 2 at one time.
Why did you get them?
So one of our daughters was a thumb sucker, and we had promised her that we were going to start the process of looking for a dog once she quit sucking her thumb. It took us 2 years between the time that she stopped. We said we would start the process. So we went to every dog show, every adoption event. We went to Petco every weekend. We were just trying to drag it out. We were like, we haven't found the right dog yet. So it was a promise to the kids. But the funny thing is, as much of a pain as they are, and as much work as they can be, and you just can't be as spontaneous as a family, because it's like, oh, we were gonna, but we need the dogs, So the flip side of that is, this is going to sound so corny, and I used to look at people, especially being a Black person, like, we just didn't treat our dogs a certain way growing up. Like, we had dogs for like protection, or they would be like in the backyard, in the basement, and they were like your security system. So like, we weren't taking them on vacation. We weren't doing any of that. So we were like, both my husband were like, we want to embrace dogs as like a part of the family. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. And so 99.9% of the time we take them for a walk. And so I used to do it by myself. And then a couple of years ago, my husband just started doing it every morning with me. So like, that is our time in the morning. And we usually bookend our days. So we usually start off walking the dogs, and end the day watching something completely mindless as we're like getting ready to go to bed. But with the dogs, they make sure that we get out of the house. I know that sounds like so ridiculous, but like every single day, rain, snow, hot, cold, whatever. And I've always enjoyed being outside. And so you get so busy between work and kids and, so many different things that you have to do, that it's very easy to like put that time aside. And I know for sure that if we didn't have dogs, we would not walk every single day the way that we do. And so that is something that I love about the day, starting off, because I feel like we got married very young. I was 21. My husband was 22. So it's very easy to kind of lose yourself in your marriage. And then once you have kids, to just sort of disconnect. And I feel like that, even though it's another responsibility, it has given us that time to start sort of every day. And the other thing about the dogs is, I have twin teenage daughters, and girls especially. I don't have boys, so I don't know if hormonally they're experiencing the same thing, but between COVID and being like cooped up in the house, and just they both play sports, so if they had a bad game or a bad meet or whatever, they could just be like in a really bad mood and just have like an attitude. And it doesn't matter what I say. Sometimes they don't necessarily want to talk to someone. The dogs are just there, so they can go and sit in the dog bed, which I would never do because I don't lay in dogs' beds, but they, especially one of them, she will go and like just lay down with the dog. And so like things I used to hear people say about their dogs, and I was like, what? And it really is true. Like you love them. And as much as I say that they're like a pain, their expectations are so low of their human beings. Like they just like one walk every day, and like they get so excited, and you give them one treat and they're so grateful and happy. And every day is like, we have one dog who's like crazy, and he thinks he's going to catch a squirrel. And so every single day he goes out. He's never caught a squirrel, but you would not know from his level of effort every single day. And it doesn't matter. I'm like, you've seen these same squirrels, like literally all day long, still goes after him. So
he's been at this for 8 years.
8 years, and still not deterred. He's a very funny dog. I'm cracking up, like just thinking about him. Like every day.
Oh man.
Yeah. So you learn a lot from dogs about that, just like in like never giving up, because he starts off the day, he's like, I know I can do it today. Today's gonna be my day. And it's like he goes to sleep, and so that was 2 things. And then the last thing is, so I love I really, really enjoy cooking, which is ironic because when I first got married, like I couldn't cook a lick because my parents cooked every single night. Usually my dad, we would have leftovers some nights, but like I never had to cook for myself. And I graduated from college, and I graduated in May and I got married in June. So I literally have never lived on my own, other than like when I was in college. But I didn't think that I was going to like cooking, because I was like, why would I want to cook? But when I learned how to cook very early in our marriage, it occurred to me that if you cook, you get to pick what you're eating. So I was like, that was very, I don't know why that was like such an aha moment for me, but I was like, I hated baked chicken growing up, and we had baked chicken every week. So for the first probably 12 years of probably first 15 years of our marriage, I never baked a chicken, because I was like, I can't bake another chicken, because I had it every single week growing up as a kid. So I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I experiment with all different kinds of food. I'm pretty partial to Asian cuisine. But one of my favorite things to do is to cook a really good meal and have us be able to sit down as a family and eat it. And I know COVID has been horrible and awful, and people can't wait to get back, but it has been such a blessing in the time that we have gotten with our kids, and not like, oh, we got to, get back because we got to do, like, just time. And so I'm very grateful for that. And, usually in a normal week, non-COVID, we only get to have dinner together probably 4 nights a week, like, well, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then maybe one night during the week. So in COVID, it's just, we've had more, time to be able to sit down and have dinner as a family.
Good. What are your favorite things to do for self-care? It might be, there might be some overlap, but
so one of my favorite things is I love to get a massage. Love to get a massage. Like, that is the number one stress reliever probably for me. And I know my husband hates the fact that that's like my favorite thing, because he's the in-house masseuse. And so it's not really that fun for him, but I'm like, this is really amazing for me. So can you suck it up? So, and a professional massage is great too. It's just, I don't, even before COVID, I didn't do it very often. Probably a handful of times in the last 20 years, but a professional massage where that you have them for 60 minutes is like, it is blissful. It is just, it's awesome. That's probably the best thing. And this is going to sound terrible, and all the psychologists are probably going to say, don't do this, but like, I like to eat for self-care. So just, I don't know, there's something very comforting about food to me. And I know that's probably not a good habit, but I feel like so much happens with like good food, like I feel like it's not just me eating, it's me being with other people that I admire, love, adore, you know, want to spend time with. So whether that is my family or my friends or, so I would say those are probably the top two things. I would love to say that like I exercise for self-care, but that's not true right now.
Yeah,
that's probably it.
no, that's good. What are some things you do for self-growth?
So I need to do some more self-growth things. I've gotten away from reading the way that I would like to, like in terms of like books, but I do read a lot of news articles or things about like cultures or, you know, smaller articles or stories or that kind of thing. So I think that my kids would say I do that too much because I'll like print out an article or I'll like, you know, screenshot it or forward it to them or whatever. They don't find it very interesting, but I would say that I really enjoy writing. And so I try to do something with writing on a regular basis. Last year, actually it was into 2020 also, I did this program called Leadership Montgomery, which was like totally out of my comfort zone because I'm not really like a networker. I'm not shy. I'll talk to anybody, but it's usually nothing to do with like what I do professionally. So this was kind of like a leap of faith and also professional growth and trying to figure out sort of directionally where I want to take my business. And so that was a really, really great opportunity. And then I signed up for, I think it's Coursera is the one that I signed up for the online classes. So ask me if I've actually taken any of those yet, but I bought the package. So I have access to like thousands of classes right now. I just gotta, and they have some really cool ones on there. I just haven't actually done it. So that's on my to-do list.
Got it. How are you keeping yourself entertained these days? Music, podcasts, shows, movies?
So I am surrounded by like people who are really into self-improvement, and it's very inspiring, and I want to be like them. Because I was like, oh, I listened to this great podcast, and I'm like, where do you find the time to listen to the podcast? So they're like listening at work or like, you know, transporting kids or whatever. And I spend a lot, I think I find myself doing a lot of mindless things when I have sort of downtime. So it could be like Jimmy Fallon's monologue. It could be watching something that I just don't have to think about at night. So I want to be better about doing more of those things that I think other people have found beneficial, but I just haven't gotten around to it. So I find myself gravitating more towards things that are going to make me laugh.
Okay. Any movie or comedy show you've seen lately?
I think it's Bill Burr. Do you know that comedian?
I mean, I think I've heard the name, yeah.
Okay, so he's pretty irreverent, but so there are certain things that he's going to say that they will just rub people the wrong way, and then certain things that I just find hilarious that he says. Oh gosh, Jim Gaffigan, I think that's his name. He's one of my favorite comedians. So I will definitely listen to him. And my Sirius subscription just ran out, actually, so I need to renew that for the comedy channel. But yeah, that's
cool. So if you were to write a book, what would it be about?
I've started so many book projects. So should I just tell you about one of those ideas? So I had an idea to sort of do like an advice book, like to my kids before they go to college, but I would write it over the next couple of years. So based on like lessons that I've learned in parenting them or when I was a teenager. So that, and then I've had like a couple of ideas for like fiction stories, but I realized I'm not a very good fiction writer. So every time I go back and read like what I've written, it's not very good. So I think I should probably stick to more like, I kind of feel like you have to be famous or more accomplished to write a memoir. So I can't really say it'll be a memoir because like you have to have people who want to read it. So nobody would want to know to read my memoir. So I can't call it that. It will be something nonfiction.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, the first one, the lessons to your kids, is a great one. But also the memoir piece is, you never know, right? Like a lot of the greatness or whatever comes at the latter part of life. And so
Yeah.
if, if you wrote a memoir, let's just say tomorrow, and then, I don't know, 10 years later, you become, I don't know, whatever, anything famous. People would like try to, analyze that memoirs and try to get a better sense of you, especially before the fame.
Yes.
So yeah, no, those are good ideas. Okay, you kind of alluded to this a little, but what do you do in your professional life? And is it any different than what you dream about doing as a kid?
Yes. So I have a government contracting company, and we have small government contracts that are mostly in the administration and health communication spaces. So that is not anything I ever expected to be doing. I don't think you even know like what government contracting is when you're a kid. And so we actually have two companies. So that's one. And then the other one is an educational consulting and tech company. And that's my background. I am a former English teacher. And then I was a high school guidance counselor. And so I helped to kind of guide the direction of the programming for undergraduate services. So helping families to walk through the college admissions process. So very different spaces. One is a lot more just sort of management and administration because most of our contracts are not in the DC metro area. So we have project managers on site. And obviously now, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but fortunately for us, all of our work got moved to telework. So it's just kind of, overseeing that aspect. And as a kid, in like later childhood, I did eventually say I wanted to become a teacher. And it is something that I've thought about going back to potentially. Maybe on like the community college level. But then maybe I used to teach middle school. I could see myself going back to middle school. Also, for many years, I really wanted to be a PE teacher because I was like such a tomboy and I was like, this would be awesome. You get paid to like play sports with kids all day. I know there's more to that. I know there's more than just playing games with kids. You have to do lesson plans and stuff like that. But I also think that there's so much, especially like for girls in sports and just like building that sense of confidence and self, I think you can do a lot of that if you make a connection with your PE teacher. I had a great health and PE teacher when I was in middle school, and I know that she had such an impact on so many people's lives, like especially young girls. So
nice. As a kid, did you, because you said you guys have 2 companies now, so did you even dream about entrepreneurship or business?
not at all. Heck no. So I married into an entrepreneurial family, and I knew that my husband was always going to want to take a shot. And so he started off on the corporate track, and I think really liked certain aspects of that, but also felt like this pull to go out and start his own, business. And like, honestly, I never would have had the confidence, even though I talked about confidence, not in business, I would not have thought like, oh, I can do it, if he wouldn't have been like, oh, come on, you could do this. So I think that that sort of give and take has worked really well for us. And I think that I've been able to support him on the kind of the content side of what one business does, and then he's been able to support me in terms of like business development and more of the financial aspect, and being sort of the in-house CFO and that kind of thing. So it's been a good balance. But I never had any dreams of or aspirations of having my own business. I thought about journalism, I thought about lawyer, I thought about I did become a teacher for a while. I thought about psychology, but I never thought like, oh, I'm going to own my own business. It just wasn't something that I really thought about.
Yeah. Is there something on your bucket list to learn or do?
Yes. I'm not musically inclined at all. And as much as I love writing and reading and consider those to be strengths, I've never acquired languages very easily. And so I took Spanish like from middle school through high school. I took a couple of semesters in college, and I've just never been fluent. So I would love to live in a Spanish-speaking country for 6 months at a time, where I'm forced to speak the language and actually become fluent. And I would love to learn how to play an instrument, which that's going to be harder than the language, because I cannot. It just does not come easily. I tried piano, I tried violin. It just sucks. So I think I'm going to try guitar and see how that goes. So those are 2 things. We've traveled some, but not nearly as extensively as we would like. So that's definitely on the list. And I would really like to be a published author at some point in my life. Oh. And I catch a lot of flack because when one of our girls was 10, she won a writing contest and it was featured in the Washington Post. And so she reminds me all the time that she's the only published author in the family. I'm like,
I mean, you definitely have to get on with that book.
I got to do something.
Yeah, you have to knock that out.
I got to do something. And I have entered a couple of writing contests every year. Bethesda Magazine does a writing contest, and I'm 0 for 2 now. So every time I send it in, I'm like, this is it, guys. This is, because I got to be able to tell her that like we're both, we both had something published. Yeah, so yeah. That's a goal.
Nice. Is there anything you want to unlearn?
Yes. So I am the queen of unfinished projects. Like I have 1,000,005 ideas, but my execution is terrible. So there are some people who are just like so committed and workhorses. And so that's my husband. Like when he will see an idea like through to fruition, he will have his spreadsheets and check things off the boxes or whatever. I have this great idea for fill in the blank, and I might get as far as like outlining the ideas for said business or book or story or whatever, and that's the end of it. So I don't know where in my life I learned to give up on things. And the exception is my marriage and my kids. Like, those are the only two things that I have started and followed through on, and I have no intentions of like stopping. I think I'm really good at those two things. So maybe it's when I start something, if it's not like up to what I think it should be, I'm just like, this is it. I'm like, I'm done. But yeah, so I wish I could unlearn quitting.
Nice. Any advice for your younger self?
Ooh, so, I think that it's kind of like, this seems like it's contradictory, but I would probably encourage myself to try to figure out what I'm passionate about and go after it. But at the same time, give yourself grace to go through the process, because I really do feel like in a lot of ways I've been able to explore different things. I don't feel like I've completed any of those things that I've explored, but I've started them. And so I feel like it's a part of my process. Like in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I should have, determined that my path was going to be this and then just follow through on that path. But I look back and I'm like, the choices that I made have sort of led me to an incredible life. So I can only be so, I can only have so much advice for my former self, because it's like, you just kind of need to go with the flow. And to trust your instincts. Cause I think the reason why, even though I'm not necessarily on the path that I thought I would be on, I've enjoyed getting to where I am, is because I made good choices along the way, in the people that I surrounded myself with, and mostly the people I would say that I've surrounded myself with. That's been the biggest blessing, I think, in helping me to be on this journey. So I would say, don't be afraid to explore your passions, but give yourself grace if things don't work out.
Yeah. What's the best advice you've received about money?
So this is going to sound terrible. When we first got married, my husband was working for GE Capital, huge company. And one of his mentors, we had dinner with him and his wife up in Connecticut. And he told his mentor, who has since passed away, told me that my job was to spend money, because he would just make more of it. And so I know that sounds terrible, and it sounds like really superficial, but my takeaway from that was that, and this is where my husband and I like fundamentally disagree. I have a really weird relationship with money. I just feel like it will always be there. Like, and I know there's not like an infinite, but I just feel like, you'll make more of it. So I really believe in giving away. Like, as much as you can. So, because you get to a point you're like, like what more do I need? And I'm certainly not even close to being rich. So it's just, I think you get to like a certain point in your life and you're like I'm healthy. Like I have space in my house, and so that advice was not to hold, to me, that advice was, don't covet money. Don't hold on to it like you're never going to have it again. And I really do believe that when you give, it comes back to you tenfold. Like, even if it's not in money per se, but like giving to people or friends or charities or whatever, especially when it's not expected, is like one of the best gifts that you can give, especially when people are really in need. So I think that was my takeaway about it, that there will always be more of it. You can't take it with you, and that you should give it away, and not that you shouldn't say, like, I don't want to make it sound like you shouldn't like save for the future or anything like that, but you can be prepared, but you can also give generously. And then, so I grew up in a very frugal household. That's probably one of the reasons why I married my husband. So the advice that I always got from my dad and from his father, my grandfather, was, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you spend. And so I know people who live, and don't make a lot of money, but they live very frugally, and so they can save. And then people who make a lot of money and who have nothing because they're not smart about it. So, I just think finding that balance of being able to, live within your means, but also always remembering to be generous. So,
yeah. So you think you got your money script from your dad and your grandparents?
I definitely remember them talking about it. And my dad always invested. He was always into the stock market, ever since I can remember. And so, my dad would be very disappointed. He actually sent me a text this morning about Airbnb's IPO, and it's like, hey, are we going to invest? Are you guys going to invest in this? So I know he wishes I was more into it. I'm not. So I do try to listen and, save for the future. But at the same time, I try to listen to Eric's former mentor, who's like, there's more to come. You can always figure out a way to make more money. So, give it away.
Yeah.
Which my dad would not be happy about, but.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're both, I don't think they're contradictory advice. I think they complement each other in a way. So, what has been the toughest thing you've had to tackle, and what helped you get through it?
So I've lost a lot of people that were very close to me. So when I was almost 15, my older sister passed away. Unexpected cerebral hemorrhage. And so that's like, it's interesting because now my girls are 15. So they're, almost the same age I was when I lost my sister. So it's weird, I think, losing somebody at that age, because you never know like how their life would have played out, and like where they would be now. And so I went from being a middle child to being, the older sibling when she passed away, because we have one more, who actually just FaceTimed me, and she's like, "Are you ignoring me?" So, because she called me last night and I was like about to go to bed and I didn't call her back. So, so that was a really difficult time, and I think I didn't realize the impact and the magnitude of that until I had my own kids, and I realized what that loss is like for a parent. Yeah. And like, I remember calling my mom when my kids were like 2 and just saying, like, I don't know how you guys did it. And, you know, having to deal with the loss of a child, but still parent and be present for your kids. So it's not anything I ever wish on anybody. But I think we got through it because my parents were just, it just wasn't an option not to. And so I have a really big, close, loud family that we, you know, leaned on, and very, very strong faith. We probably should have done some sort of counseling, but I think that, you know, I never felt like I couldn't talk to like my parents about it. So that was really tough. And then the year after my sister passed away, my grandfather, who had lived with us since I was 2, he passed away of cancer. And so it was back to back, you know, and I had a really, really close relationship with him. He was more like a second father. And because he was always there, he would take me to school in the morning. He was at every basketball game. So that was another tough loss. But I think the consolation there was really believing that, like, he was so brokenhearted after my sister passed away and feeling like he was there with her. So, and then several years later, I had an aunt who passed away, who was the one who taught me how to cook. And so just because they were such different forces in my life, like now when I think about the void, I doubt if my grandfather would still be here. But you think about, well, what would my Aunt Jency be doing now? And, like, you know, would Sydney and Nina go and stay with her for the summer? Like I would go stay with her, or like would my sister have kids, or but the blessing is that one of my girls, the one who came in here, who I said was not my husband, she literally, when she came out, it was like my sister reincarnated. So, you know, I think that you can let it get you down, or you can be angry or bitter, or you can see like how you can still find something beautiful in situations that could make you sad. So I think family, faith, and the ability to laugh and find joy in things is what, you know, those are the things that get me through.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, that's a powerful story. On a lighter note, where do you feel the most at home and happy?
Friday night on the couch watching a movie and having ordered takeout with my husband and Sydney and Nina. Those are my girls. I love Friday nights. Because I feel like you have the whole weekend ahead of you. There's just like so much promise of like not having to do all the things that you're obligated to do Monday through Friday. So I would say on a just day-to-day basis, that's probably one of my favorite things. And just having like the whole weekend ahead of you and being able to take advantage of whatever that weekend brings. So if it's like, oh, it's a beautiful day, we can go for a hike, or we can take the dogs out for a walk, or we can drive down to the beach, or we can do whatever. I like the idea of like the prospect of what's to come in downtime.
Yeah. As you were saying, that you look forward to Fridays, does your dog, especially my favorite one, the squirrel chaser?
Yes, Simba. Uh-huh.
Oh, even better.
Yes, right.
Perfect name, right?
Of course.
So the Simba, I mean, you guys have been doing this for years, so I'm sure they can sense what is Friday, right?
Well, the funny thing is, like, now I think that they think every day is Friday because everybody's home.
Right, right.
So the biggest winners in COVID are dogs, because
Oh, yes.
they went from, so I usually work from home anyway. So they went from just having me to like now everybody's home.
Yeah.
So it is like Friday every day for them now, except for when Cindy and Nina go into their rooms for their Zooms and like close the doors and they can't come in. But yeah, I think that Friday is every day for them right now.
Nice. Yeah, Simba is he's occupying a lot of space in my head. And I can't even really explain it, but it's good. It's good.
When your kids ask you for a dog, if you don't have one, you think of Simba, okay? Because he's for better or for worse.
Yes. All right. For a fun question, if you won the lottery tomorrow, what will you do?
How much money?
Say 300 million after taxes. So you
after taxes. Okay, that's now we're talking. Okay. I would definitely give to the church and charity. I know that sounds so corny, but like off the top, I think that it is one of the most rewarding things to like truly find people who are in like need and to be able to help. So, I mean, there's a lot of great like local charities that I really, try to work with or support or volunteer with or whatever. So I would definitely do that. The tricky part is I would love to say that we would travel the world for like a year, but I know my kids are like about to go into junior year. So that would be very disruptive for them. So like, would I get a tutor? I don't know. I would definitely buy a couple of different houses. I love the beach. But I'm afraid of like coastal erosion. So I don't know that I would buy something in my current situation, but if I have 300 million after taxes, I'm definitely buying something on the beach because I don't really care about that because I could just buy something a little bit further off when that house is washed away. So I would, this is very shallow. I've always wanted a Range Rover. I would definitely buy a Range Rover. I would splurge for a Range Rover. I already know which one. I would get the white one with the black trim.
The Panda is as it's called.
What?
The Panda is called.
The Panda. Oh, do they call it the Panda? I didn't know. I just know that car is beautiful. At 300 million. I have a lot of people, even just in my family, that like I would be able to like buy houses for, people who have worked hard like all their lives and just didn't necessarily like catch a break. And so like I would be able to give them a break and just buy a house. I would also set like all of my first cousins' kids up. So like college would be paid for, like I think, because you can, the whole like, you can give a man a fish or you can teach him how to fish. And I think that would be life-changing for a lot of people. I've never been to like New Zealand, Australia, anywhere like that part of the world. So I would definitely make my way around. I want to say that we would go around the world. Like that would be my goal. And maybe if if we were still in COVID, I could probably charter, or no, actually I could probably buy a yacht and get somebody to charter, and that would be safe. So I could probably do that, and the kids would be remote learning, so they could just distance learn from the boat, and we would be all set. So that would be, I think, how I would get started the first year.
Nice. Sounds fun. As a parent to twin daughters, what values are you hoping to imprint on them?
Give generously and anybody can give. If you don't have time, you can give money. If you don't have money, you might have a talent that you could help. So I hope that they have a giving spirit. I hope that they recognize the value and the importance of being there and being kind to people, because a friend of mine a while ago said she was at some conference and somebody gave a really great speech, and one of the things she said was, what else could be true? And I think we're very quick to jump to conclusions about people, but I think if you always, before you act, when you are on the receiving end of somebody doing something wrong, like what else could be true about that person or that person's life or circumstance that led them to behave like that? And so the idea of giving people grace before we rush to some sort of judgment is something that I would hope that they would have. And that's a hard one, especially for teenagers. It's hard for adults. But I would hope that that they would have the ability to try to see past, somebody's actions, not to the point where you're taken advantage of or, people just walk all over you, but that you do it because it's the right thing to do, not because you're looking to get something back, from it. I hope that they value the importance of an education, because it is literally one of the few things that nobody can take away from you once you get it. And that is, when we've talked pretty candidly with our girls about like our decisions to change careers, to start our own business, to we've moved several times looking for, what we thought was going to be the ideal fit for school for them. And one of the things that we always try to impress upon them is we can make a lot of these decisions because we have an education. And so it gives us the freedom and the flexibility and the ability to be able to go after things, but then to be able to pivot if things aren't working out. So I hope that they value that. And I hope that the seeds of their faith have been planted. I think everybody has to explore faith on a personal level. And so, our job as parents is to expose them, to guide them, to, show them that things like going to church and reading the Bible are important to us. But they ultimately have to make a decision for themselves and what, path they're going to go down to strengthen and develop their own faith. So
It's good. I really like that last statement about the seeds of faith, so much so that I think it's going to be the title of this conversation. Is there anyone that you would like to thank or express your appreciation for that you haven't had the chance to do publicly yet?
Um, I mean, in life, I just feel like there are so many people that I'm so grateful for. And I mean, I think I would, I think I've told him this. I think he knows, but I mean, I would thank my husband for being the partner in life that I literally always imagined I would have. And so I remember when I was younger, I made like a list of all the things that like I would not, these are all the things I'm looking for in somebody. And he literally checked every box. And so I feel like so grateful that I didn't settle. And you really do, you want somebody who's going to be a cheerleader. And I would hope that he would say the same thing about me, just in terms of supporting him and his life and who he is and who he wants to become. Because I certainly feel like he is that person for me. And I would definitely thank my girls, because they keep me honest. And it's like a mirror, like, certain qualities that you don't want to admit or see in yourself. You're like, dang, she got it so honestly, and so sometimes like I'll just be like shaking my head in the car because they'll be talking and I'll be like, oh my gosh, this is my insecurity coming out right now, or this is my arrogance coming out right now, or this is my whatever. So they're funny, and they're real kids. So I would thank them, because I feel like they make me a better version of who I was before I had them. And the funny thing is, like, if you ask my kids, they're like, I'm definitely not having kids. Like, so it's the funniest thing, because they think that like you have to give up everything when you have kids. They're like, what did you want to do before you had kids? I'm like, well, I did. So they think it's like the hardest job. They're like, you travel to this game, or you stay 4 hours, or you stay up late doing this or whatever. And so I told them, I was like, you guys aren't mature enough. You guys aren't mature enough to understand. And you also don't have like somebody who's going to be on the ride with you, like at 15, I hope that you don't feel, like you're ready to have a family. But eventually, you may get there. I'm not going to make any assumptions. And I would definitely thank my sister. So my younger sister is, we're very different, but she is the most, what's the word I want to say here? You just want to be around her, because she's so genuine and so joyful and so funny, and she's such a good friend, like to her friends and to me. And like, I mean, I know you hear people like, oh, this person would drop this in a second. Like I anything that I would ever need, like before I could even ask, she would do it. So I would thank her for just being like an example of just of like what a good human being is, not only for me, but also for her nieces, and for everybody around her. I mean, she's a great person. And I would think, I don't have a lot of friends. I know a lot of people. I'm very like, I'll talk to anybody. But I'm particularly grateful for a group of women that I've met in the last 10 to 15 years ish, usually at a point in your life when you don't continue to meet people that become a part of your inner circle, who just make me laugh and, you know, you can commiserate with. And I just feel really fortunate to, as an adult, still have found, you know, people that you can make those connections with. And I would also thank my in-laws for welcoming me into a family literally from day one. I he's gonna hate that I said this, but so my husband took me home to meet his family on our first date. So I was like, that's pressed. So that's really pressed. He's gonna say it was just the circumstances, but whatever. And
I've honestly never heard that in my life.
See what I'm saying? So they, like, from literally that first meeting, made me feel like I was a part of their family. So, and that's really, really hard to find. And I think our families had some similarities, like, you know, both of our parents have been married for a really long time, got married young, whatever, but we grew up very differently. His parents, I think, were a lot more strict growing up. But I've always felt like they just welcomed me with open arms. And I think that, you know, they saw their role as parents not in picking someone for their son, but in embracing whoever he decided was going to be the right one for him. And so I have to remember that as my kids start to bring people home. I'm going to really try to be that person. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to try to do that. I'm probably going to be more like my mom and be very opinionated and be like, but I'm going to work on that. So I appreciate them for being great parents to us and being a second set of parents to me, but then also like who they've been for, you know, their grandkids also. I mean, I could literally think like a bazillion people. There's so many people who are just great people to have like in my corner. So the list could go on and on.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. How do you define success?
Success. I think success is being able to do what you want to do and finding fulfillment in what you're doing. So that's going to be different for different people, but I think that that's ultimately, if you can figure out what you're supposed to do, what you have been sort of called here to do, and you can do that and find fulfillment in it, I think that's the ultimate in success.
Yeah, nice. Well said. So I've asked you, you know, that was my last question. I've asked you a bunch of questions. Now, you have the opportunity to ask me one question.
One question.
Yeah. It could be anything. I mean, you know, yeah.
Let me think about this. What do you think the impact of this project will ultimately be?
This Connect in Politics project?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's there are a few um, levels of the impact. So I think there's the impact for the person themselves. So like you know, being interviewed, um, like I told you earlier, I think, some of the feedback I've gotten from folks from alums is that, it's it's like a more relaxed, cool therapy session in the park, kind of, right? Like it's like talking to an old friend in a way, whereas it's not a transactional conversation. So there's that for the person that's participating. There's also the like again like I told you where for families and friends of the participant that they actually you know become they have a stronger bond with their family members or friends because now their friends feel like they understand this person, at a deeper level, than just, oh, we were in the same class or we're in the same church or whatever it is. Um, so on, for the guests or the alums, I think um, there's two value adds. One, just from a psychic and mental health level. And then there's also the deeper bonds and relationships that they have with their family and friends. Then I think so. And to me, I think I think that's important. But then there's there's almost like the unknown, what I call the unknown unknown, which is that you know you put these things out there and you tell your story, and someone finds this story and for whatever reason, something you say or the way you say something resonates with them, and it actually, the impact. One of the things I've and family and friends always come up to me and tell me this. So like, a lot of times we talk. Like, I mean, like as people, as human beings, we're constantly talking, but we never really know. Um, there's never a way to kind of track what I said and the impact of that, like did that person really, I mean, we can kind of see it without kids, like if we're raising
Right.
kids. Um, I've been fortunate in a way where I've had people from undergrad, 20 years later, 15 years, 10 years later, bump into me somewhere, strange or whatever. And they start asking me about, like, do I remember this thing I said 15 years ago in this, in this room? And I'm like, no, I don't. They're like, well, from that conversation, now, I decided to, be more healthy. I stopped eating McDonald's or whatever, like, or, just the other day, someone, told me like a conversation we had. And I don't know if this is unique because a lot of these things come from undergrad. And I don't know if it's unique to undergrad because of the environment, just how much time you have. But yeah, I mean, people have told me, based on conversation, and it's not even like lengthy conversations. It could be just one conversation, but something that was said, for whatever reason, triggered something in their head, and they decided to go down that rabbit hole, and and it's had a major impact on their life. So I'm saying that to say that, with this project, that is one of my big um, goals, even though it'll be extremely difficult to track. But it's really like, putting this out there and hopefully someone finds a video, watches it, and it adds some value, something resonates with them, it adds a value to their life. And then, it makes the world a better place. Literally, like, I mean, it's cliche in a way, but it's like, it's yeah, I mean, it's really to make the world a better place by folks sharing their stories.
And what is your day job?
So it has nothing to do with any of this, right?
Okay.
So you know, I do a couple of things. One, you know, I work in tech, in IT. I also coach as well as run a youth sports program, and I also, you know, I invest as well. So I'm in those, you know, those realms.
Gotcha. Okay. I wouldn't think investing in IT would lend itself to this kind of project, but you know, you can't fit neatly in a square peg all the time, right?
Yeah. I don't at all. I don't fit into any, you know, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's been, you know, it's been a pleasure. We connected, we politic, and you know, I look forward to having more conversations in the near future.
Sounds good. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Thank
All right.
you.